Hi, and welcome to Prepping Essentials. Most people use milk quite a bit on a day-to-day basis, particularly as an addition to drinks, such as tea and coffee, or perhaps as an addition to breakfast meals, such as porridge or cereals. But what will we do when the grid goes down? Well, I guess if you're lucky enough to own some land, or if you're living on a homestead, then you could keep your own cows or goats and get milk from them. But for many people, this will not apply. The most obvious choice then would be to set aside stores of powdered milk. But is there another alternative? Let's find out. Well, it's the weekend and I've been doing the normal food shopping, and one thing that I do get every single week is this. It's milk. This is whole milk. I don't really like your skimmed or your semi-skimmed. And really all I use this for is for teas, coffees, and in the morning for breakfast I always have porridge oats, so I use it for that. And that's really all I use it for. I don't use it for cooking or baking. And every week this is what I normally get. I normally get a 4 pint and a 1 pint. So, sorry, a 2 pint. So 6 pints a week is generally what I get. And you'll have seen in previous videos about long-term food storage that milk is one of the things that I do in my long-term food storage. And what I usually have is this. It's powdered or dried milk. I have skimmed milk, and I've recently found full fat or whole milk as well. It's buried in the cupboard, so I'm not going to try and drag that out. And this is not very cheap. It's around about £2 for the skimmed, and it's about £3 for the whole milk. And 1 carton of these, I think I've mentioned it in a previous video, will convert when you water it down into 6 pints. So if you convert this 340 gram carton into 57 gram portions, which will make you 1 pint, your 6 pints of milk that I would normally buy. This will produce the same 6 pints, runs at about 33 pence per pint. But it is quite a chunky container to store. I have experimented in putting this into vacuum sealed bags, and I just wondered if there was an alternative, and I think that actually there is, for what I use it for anyway, for cereals or porridge oats and for teas and coffees. So you will know, if you've watched previous videos, that I stock dried oats and dried long grain rice. And I've come across a couple of videos on YouTube that tell me that normally vegans and vegan cooking channels, and they use both rice and oats along with things like almonds to make a milk substitute. So because I already store in bulk both oats and rice, it got me kind of thinking, do I really need to store powdered milk for the purpose that I use it for? And that's what we're going to have a look at today. We're going to experiment with making a milk from oats and a milk from rice. So let's have a look. The first step for this is have a 1 cup measuring container and a couple of normal jugs. I use rice and I use oats every single day virtually, so I've always got them decanted out into these jars. These are actually recycled coffee jars. Over the years I've managed to collect lots and lots of these, and they're very nice. They've got a plastic resealable lid, so every time I buy these, I don't buy them that often because it's an expensive coffee. I normally buy Where are we? I normally buy this kind. But when I do get these, I'm feeling flush. I recycle the jars because they're very nice. So all we're doing is taking some oats. It's 1 cup worth of oats. Just level that out. There we go. Doesn't have to be an exact science, but I do have a little bit of OCD. So we pop that into one of the jugs. Just clear that out. And the same with the rice. Pop that into the cup. Measure the cup out. If you're not using cups, clearly there's a difference in weight between oats and rice. 1 cup of rice is around about 200 grams. 1 cup of oats is around about 140 grams. But as I say, it doesn't have to be an exact science. If you try it, you can adjust the amount of water to adjust the consistency of the final milk. So literally all we're going to do with these 2 jugs is we're going to put some water in, fill it about halfway up so that it covers both the oats and the rice. And we're just going to let that sit, and normally you can let it sit from anywhere from half an hour to all day if you want. But I think I'll leave these for about an hour just to let them soak off. I'm going to use warm water rather than cold water. And when I say warm, I mean hot tap water rather than boiled from a kettle. So we'll just do that. Just let it run for a second to get hot. Which it is. And we'll just let those sit there. For an hour or so, and then we'll come back to them later. Okay, so these have been sitting for about an hour now, and all I've done really is just got a spoon and every 10 minutes or so just stirred them around. So there's nothing exciting, no great science to this. So all we're going to do now is to take the oats first, and we're going to just pour out the water. Do this slowly so that the oats don't all come tumbling out. And just give it a quick rinse. And again, just pour out. The reason that people I've seen doing this on different YouTube channels is that they say that if you don't actually rinse it, there is some kind of, it's not really a chemical, something in the oats anyway, that can be a little bit slimy, and if you don't rinse it out, the finished milk can taste a little bit slimy. So we simply pop that into the blender, and we're going to add 3 cups of cold water, if I can spot where 3 cups is on there. Yeah. That's about it. As I say, it's not an exact science. Pop that into the blender. And we're just going to blend that for 1.5 minutes. And rather than do the 2 minutes on video, I'll come back to that when it's done. so that's 2 minutes in the blender. Pop that away. I'll give this a quick rinse now because I'm going to use this again shortly for the rice version. Don't know if you can see that, but it's frothed up quite nicely. Now, this is the messy part because what we have to do is to strain the liquid. Now, you can buy a variety of different bags, cloths, sieves for doing this. This is they call it a nut milk bag. It's made of hemp, I believe, rather than cotton. Little tip with this, turn it inside out so that the seams are on the outside. When you get this, it'll be the other way around. That stops the oats or the rice getting clogged up in the seams of the bag and making it difficult to wash it out. Apologies for that. Bit of a boy racer running around, I think, outside. So pop this into a bowl and then pour the contents of your jug into the bag. Just be careful because the sides of the bag will start to try and fall down. Give everything in there. I'll quickly rinse this. And then it'll be ready for the rice. Then gather up your bag and twist it inside the bowl, which then starts to compress the liquid inside, and as you can see, it starts to fall out into the bowl. Just keep twisting, take your time with this, don't overdo it. It is very time consuming in this kind of bag. You can get nylon mesh style bags to do this, but to be honest, I'd rather have the cloth bag. It does a far better job of filtering than your nylon mesh, and whilst I don't have years and years of experience at this, so I can't say for sure, I do think that these cloth bags will last a lot longer. So persevere with this. As I say, it is a little bit time consuming. Keep twisting the bag, but it is strangely satisfying, and you will end up eventually with the liquid out and the pulp of the oats remaining inside the bag. One thing I should have mentioned at the start is make sure you have washed your hands before you do this. Needless to say, I did do that. So we're getting towards the end. It's not so much the liquid in the oats that make this a little bit slow and difficult, it's the air that's inside the bag. So it can be worthwhile just as you get towards the bottom, keep twisting. You can take out all your tensions in the world doing this. We are getting there, slowly but surely. You can always fast forward, of course, if you don't want to see me squeezing this bag for the next few minutes. But I've got to get it all out. so that I can restart and do the rice. You could, I guess, if you want, do this again through a very fine, say, flour sieve, if you really want to be absolutely sure. But I think using this cloth bag, you are only going to get the liquid and none of the solids coming through. Having done this for the first time, it's quite surprising how thick a consistency you are getting with this. I must admit, think that it would be a little bit watery, but as you can clearly see, it's a nice colour. It does look just like milk. If anything, it's probably a little bit yellower in colour. You can't see the bowl, I don't think, from this angle. You can just see the liquid kind of trickling down. So yeah, it's more of a yellow colour than a white colour. The smell is actually very, very nice. It's making me hungry just smelling this. Yeah, we're definitely getting towards the end now. But I do just want to make sure I get every last bit out. Having looked at a couple of different channels for nut milk, oat milk, rice milk, it's surprising the variety that there is. I'm only doing rice and oat, mainly because it's stuff that I have in my long-term food storage anyway. I have oats and I have rice. I don't have, apart from cashew nuts, because I do like those, I don't have any real nuts stored and set aside. But people do use nuts. They use almond nuts. Indeed, if you go into your supermarkets and look on the milk or organic section of the supermarket, you'll find a lot of milk substitutes. There's soy milk and almond milk. They seem to be the two main ones. So supermarkets are already doing this for mainly the vegan community, because they don't want the dairy products. But it is expensive. It's far, far more expensive than your traditional dairy milk products. If you've not fast forwarded on the video, I do feel your pain. This is, unfortunately, takes quite a while to get to the bottom, but we are almost there. Just continue twisting and squeezing. Good workout for your hands as well, I guess. Bit of wrist strength. See if you're going to the gym. We've now ended up with a tiny, tiny little bit left in the bottom of the bag. Twist it a little bit more, squeeze out that last bit. I do hope you haven't fallen asleep, or worse, decided that you can't be bothered watching this and disappeared off to another channel. You could have gone and made a coffee while this was going on. It has taken quite a while, but we're there anyway. We're now at the bottom of the bag. I'm not going to kill this by trying to get the very last bit out the bottom. I'll just set this to one side for a second. One thing I have noticed as I've been getting the liquid out of that bag, as I got further and further down the bag, you remember I mentioned earlier some people said that it can be a little bit slimy if you don't rinse that off. I did find as I got further down the bag that it did start to feel a little bit, I don't want to use the word slimy because that's not really an attractive word to use when you're talking about something you're going to eat or drink. But there was definitely a consistency there. So we've ended up with our final product. Now I'll do this over here rather than take the chance because I'm not that great with pouring. Okay, there we have our oat milk. And let me just have a little test. And actually, to be fair, it does actually taste like milk. So once you've got to this stage, there is still some in that jug. There's actually quite a lot in that jug, in that bowl. There is actually quite a lot, at least the same again. So from your 3 cups that went into the blender, that's certainly a pint there. You're probably going to get best part of another pint as well. So all you need to do is to put that into some kind of bottle, recycle perhaps your normal milk containers, and it should keep in the fridge certainly for 3 or 4 days. What you will have to do though, when you do take it out of the fridge, bear in mind that there'll be some kind of separation go on as it sits in the fridge. The liquid and what remains of the solids will try and separate out, so just give it a quick shake of the bottle each time that you bring it out to use it. But to be fair, that's actually quite tasty and not at all oaty, shall we say, which does surprise me. So what we'll do is we'll now do the same thing with the rice. We're simply going to take our rice, same thing, pour it liquid into the sink, give it a quick rinse, and then pop that in the blender. So there we go. I've actually got my 3 cups of water. I'll just use that to get the last few stubborn bits of rice out of that. Pop that into the blender. And we'll do the whole process again with the rice. And again, I'll pause the video while that's blending away. Same thing again, 2 minutes, and I'll quickly wash up and wash out that milk nut bag as well, so that it's ready for the rice. Okay, so exactly the same as before. I've run that with 3 cups of cold water, blended it for 2 minutes. While I was away, I've washed out the nut milk bag, and we're ready to pour this in. If you noticed, but the rice is definitely whiter looking than the oats. Same principle again, twist this around and we start squeezing again. This is coming out a lot faster than the oat milk did. You can clearly see it is whiter looking than the oat milk. I have a feeling though that this is not as thick in consistency. Well, I know definitely it isn't as thick in consistency because I can feel it. But we'll continue squishing away. And rather than have you agonise for the next few minutes while I do that, I'll just pause the video. So we're getting towards the end now. This has been a lot quicker than the oat milk, but there's definitely a difference in the consistency of the liquid that's coming out. This is far more of a watery liquid than the oats. Now, I guess there's a couple of things you could do, and certainly one of the YouTube channels that I looked at that was doing this actually said to cook the rice first, which to me seemed a bit strange. But I guess the idea behind cooking the rice first is that the actual grains of rice become far more soft and break down a lot more, releasing the actual organic solid bits of the rice, because this does feel quite firm still inside. But we'll see what happens. All of this is a learning curve. You could also, of course, use less water, I guess, but let's see. This is definitely not as creamy looking as the oat milk. Again, there's still probably half it again inside the bowl. But you can clearly see that looks more like milk, albeit skimmed milk, whereas that is a little bit more yellow in colour, the oats, and is certainly a far thicker consistency than the rice is. So there we have it, oat milk and rice milk. Let's just test that, see how that compares to the yeah, that's definitely not as rich and as creamy as the oat milk. So a preference for me, I would say the oat milk is better. What I might try and do, and I won't do this now in this video, but I might try pre-cooking the rice for a few minutes first, then rinse it and then blend it as I have done with this, and just out of curiosity to see how that comes out. But for the two that I've done today, certainly the oat is better. In terms of what it costs to do this compared to having the powdered milk, the traditional powdered milk that I have in the cupboard, as I said earlier, this works out at something like 33 pence per pint when you mix it up. and from that 340 gram container you get 6 pints. With the oats, I normally buy the oats in kilo bags, and as indeed I do with my rice. And when you look at the oats, that 1 kilo bag of rice will actually make 7 pints, because you've got 7 cups in the bag at 140 grams. So you're getting more in terms of number of pints of milk out of that. And it works out, if the bag, kilo bag of oats is 75 pence, which it is, your 7 pints come out at 10 pence per pint. The rice I get in kilo bags as well. However, 1 cup of rice is 200 grams, so you're only getting 6 pints out of the kilo bag of rice, same as this, 6 pints. And the rice currently is 45 pence a kilo, so you're getting a pint of rice milk for 7.5 pence. So both are far, far cheaper than the powdered milk. And rice and oats are both something that I have in my long-term stores, and I will continue to put away in my long-term stores. In terms of taste, this is a more watery milk than the oats. I definitely prefer the oat milk. It is definitely creamier and richer. You certainly wouldn't need to sweeten that at all. Despite being watery, you still don't need to sweeten that. It just does taste like skimmed milk, actually. It probably tastes exactly the same as that when you reconstitute it. I have seen people talk about sweetening. They're adding things like dates or cashew nuts or maple syrup. To be honest, I don't see the point. I wouldn't use that as it is today in my cereals and my coffee, the rice milk. But I would use the oat milk in my tea, and I would certainly use it in my porridge when I make my porridge in the morning. So today's video, out of the two, definitely prefer in terms of consistency and taste the oat milk, but I will, not today but maybe another day, I will experiment with the rice milk again by cooking it first and see what happens. So there we go, an alternative to dried powdered milk. Try using oats or rice, because in theory you should have them in your long-term stores anyway, so it's a good use. So I've tried drinking the oat milk as regular milk just to finish up and see how it is. Actually tastes fine. It does taste like milk. There is a slight oaty smell to it. Not much though, to be fair. You wouldn't know it was oats unless somebody told you it was oats. So I thought I'd just make a coffee, because I do want a coffee, and see what happens when I put it in the coffee. Whether it colours up the same as normal milk. I have no idea. This is completely live and random. I have no clue what's going to happen when I put this in. And it is colouring it, but it's not colouring it as much as regular milk does. So I suspect you would use more than regular milk. But having said that, it has coloured it, albeit that I've used a bit more. So I'll try it probably tomorrow when I make my porridge and see how it works with the porridge. But that's it. Oat milk, fully tested. Having some kind of milk in your long-term storage will just make that quality of life a little bit better if something does hit the fan and you start living off your long-term food stores. So whilst I do have factory-made powdered milk, the rice and the oat milk alternative is something that I will continue to practice with, and I suspect that I will end up using probably the oats, but we'll see, as part of my long-term food storage plan. Well, that's it for this video. I hope that you found something in there that was of use to you. If you did like the video, then please do click on the like button. Also, feel free to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already done so. As always, I welcome any comments, questions or suggestions you might have. Do you have a plan for long-term milk storage? Are you using the traditional factory-made powder, or like me, have you started experimenting with alternatives? Do let me know in the comment section below, especially if you do try copying what I've done today. Do let me know how you get on. But for now, thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.